Jon Bon Jovi, it's a pleasure to chat to you. Welcome to the project.
Thank you, Peter. It's great to speak to you.
Well, first of all, congratulations on the new album, Bon Jovi 2020. I have to say, with that name, with the image on the front cover, inspired by JFK, you're outside the Justice Department. Can you announce and give us the exclusive that you are, in fact, running for president?
It couldn't be any worse. I couldn't do any worse than the guy in office. Why not? It's a crazy time. And although the title is a nod to an obvious election year in America, the record just covers so many topics that are socially conscious that, I was moved by that photo and the way I was writing, and it all worked, so I'm pretty pleased with it.
The album
You're my very first interview, as a matter of fact.
Oh, really?
The very first one for this album. So you'll be number one of 10,000. But the record is, you're the official first interview. This is great.
Well, my 12-year-old me is high-fiving the 44-year-old me right now because the first concert I ever went to was New Jersey at Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne in like '88, I think it was. So lots to cover. But we want to talk about the new album. It feels different to me, and I can't quite put my hand on it. Like you've already mentioned, you touch on some issues that you've gone even a bit deeper than you have before. Does it feel different to you?
Well, it's part of the evolution. I high-five the 14-year-old in me too, but I don't want to be him. When I was 25 and we wrote "You Give Love a Bad Name," that's who I was. And now I'm a little more than 25, but there's a lot more to say. And it's a big problematic world that we live in, and there's a lot to discuss. So I'm very proud of where I'm at right now, and not trying to relive history, but rather write my new history and make it a continuum.
It seems you have a lot on your mind, specifically about your own country, America. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah.
As a writer, one thing I realized many years ago is every day is an opportunity to write a song. There's life going on around you at all times. So whether in my country it was gun violence or the political atmosphere, whether it's veterans dealing with PTSD or life and love and loss, family. But everything, that was going on in my life for the last 2 years gave me an opportunity to write. And when I felt that it encapsulated my world in 2019, I was able to capture it on a record.
And I want you to specifically maybe walk us through some of the songs on the album, and we'll get to that soon. I just want to get your process as a musician, as a songwriter. When you head into the studio, do you have all the songs ready to go, or are you still finding songs and finding moments?
Well, thank you. Typically, we go in very prepared, but even with this record, we went into Nashville and we were cutting the record, and I thought, I need a couple more. And the last song that I wrote was the song called "Lower the Flag," and it talks about gun violence. And in an overnight in America, in El Paso, Texas, and in Dayton, Ohio, 2 mass shootings went on, and it was a news piece. And in 3 minutes, it was over. Hey, today in Dayton, 22 people were killed, and now the weather. And you think, wow, there's this world has gone mad. And so I sat down to write that last one, and that's when I said, okay, the record's complete. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It talks about topical matters, but it talks about my family. It talks about, me. So I needed a well-rounded record in order for it to be complete. But typically, we go in pretty prepared.
And how many songs? We've spoken to artists on this show before where some have 100 songs they write for a single album, and most of them get thrown out, obviously. How many songs would you work up to some kind of completion?
Yeah, typically, it used to be as many as maybe 30, and I think now I've got it down to more about like 20. 20 will give you 12. And not everyone is is great, or not everyone is topical, and some are repetitious. So, like I said, you want to present the best. So, because I come from a time when albums mattered, a beginning, a middle, and an end, your presentation, I don't want to be repetitious. And you don't want to have the same subject matter. You know, it sort of belittles the first one.
I often wonder about songwriters when they present the song to the band or whoever you need to present it to first. I imagine it's the band. That must be an extremely vulnerable thing to do. Does Jon Bon Jovi still get nervous presenting? These are the lyrics I wrote. These, you know, this is my voice. This is what I'm doing. Do you still get nervous?
No, it's not nerves. I think that sometimes you have to be open to criticism, which is well, you know, accepted. But I'll give you a great example. Is some of the songs are rather long, and there's one called "Let It Rain," yep. and our producer / guitar player John Shank said to me, you know, it's going on and on. I think if we cut out these 2 verses, you know, it'll be more succinct and it'll be a single. And I said, I don't need a single. I want a story. And Bob Dylan or Leonard Cohen would not have edited the verses of the song. And it's a story that needs a beginning, a middle, and an end. So I'm willing to fight for a lyric, but I'm certainly open if I don't feel that it's necessary to eliminate it.
Jon, I'm a stand-up comic. I often run ideas past my wife. She often makes them better. She makes them funnier. That's just how it happens. Do you run ideas?
And that's why you're successful.
Yes. Do you run ideas past your wife?
Absolutely. I sent her the tracks when we were cutting them. I sent the mixes, you know, from the studio back home to her and to a couple of my children. And the same thing, wide open to criticism. In fact, the first single is Limitless. I hope you've heard it. But
absolutely.
We thought it was a song called Beautiful Drug. And it was my wife, Dorothea, who said the first single should be Limitless. And so that was it. I stopped the entire record on a dime and I said, first single's Limitless. True story.
The next question I was going to ask is who decides the singles? And I wouldn't have guessed it was your wife.
Well, in this instance, you know, her opinion was strong, and so I started it made a lot of sense to me. So then I went back to the band, and then I went to, you know, management, and then even to the record company and said, I think that this is very valid, that this be the first track. And everyone ultimately agreed that it would be the first one. Because, you know, they're interchangeable, which one would be first. But Limitless spoke a little more to setting up the record and the topics on the record.
Now, Bon Jovi, of course, not only produced great records, but you were one of the highest-selling live acts in the history of this little business you got yourself involved with. When you are putting an album together, how much does that play on your mind, that you will have to go out and sing these songs live?
A little bit. Right now, I'll give you a great story. An artist makes a record. Like I said, an album. And I want to present all the 10 songs on the record. Now, folks come to those stadiums and they want to hear the greatest hits. Well, after 36 years of record making, there's a lot of songs, and the night can't be that long. So what I'm trying to find is little venues where, in this promotional portion of the record, I can just play the new album. And that'll fulfill me artistically, so I can play every song, sit around for 2 hours and tell you the stories in a very intimate venue. And then when I come back around on the big tour, we'll play 4 or 5 songs from the new record, because the other 20 songs need to be from the catalog. But there's a part of you that's yearning to just do new material. And of course, you understand that people want to hear the hits. So, you know, I'm torn, but I see the joy in people's faces when we sing It's My Life and Living on a Prayer and Wanted Dead or Alive.
Let's talk about some of these songs on this new album, some of the topics that you've already alluded to. There's gun control, there's veteran affairs, there's Russian hacking in there. When you write about such heavy issues, is there do you put more pressure on yourself to really get it right as opposed to a love song which can be maybe a little bit more whimsical or nefarious, but these are going to be more scrutinised?
Yeah. Very good point, and thank you for that. So a story there is the song Unbroken.
Yep.
I was asked to write it for a very small documentary film about soldiers with PTSD, and I was torn because I had never served in our military, although my mother and my father were United States Marines. And I'd certainly never dealt with PTSD, so the subject matter for me was going to be also removed. I did some homework. I wrote the song. I talked to the director of the film. I listened to some of the quotes from the soldiers. I rewrote the song. When I finally presented it on my iPhone with an acoustic guitar and just singing it in, I sent it to the director. And he agreed that I had nailed it. So I recorded it that way and sent it to the soldiers. And the reaction to it was everything I'd hoped for, because I wanted them to feel proud of the song. Unlike some of the protest songs of the 70s, for instance, where there was a, obvious but dark subject that they were dealing with it, and I wanted them to find that line in there, and they talk about service and that they would do it all again, like positive moments of pride. So you really do take the time to dot every I and cross every T. With the song Lower the Flag, how I made sure that every city that I listed were the top 10 that were included in our gun violence issues in America. When I talked about the man who buried his wife, and I brought her name into it, I had to be specific. So you take the time to get it right. On the song Blood in the Water, the only interesting thing about that is when I wrote it, it was at one time in the current administration's life, and a year later, it's just interchangeable names, but it all works.
Yeah.
It still works. It's a very interesting time. One thing, though, as I get involved in all of these topics, I didn't take sides. I left it to you to decide where you fall in the matter. So even in gun control, I obviously have a heartfelt position, but I don't say, oh, guns are wrong. That's not what it's about. The song just simply states, if this was your family, how would you react? So, you have to take a kind of approach that is inclusive.
Absolutely. And the song Unbroken it's already making an impact. And I believe you'll be recording it re-recording it at Abbey Road Studios, made famous by the Beatles, of course. Tell us, and is Harry, Prince Harry, or can we call him Prince Harry anymore? I'm not sure what we call him anymore, but he's using it for the Invictus Games. Is that right?
Yeah, isn't that incredible? But the artist formerly known as Prince will be there. will be with me at Abbey Road, and so the song that there's a great story there. For me, is that I had written the song, sent it to him in August of last year, and it took a while to get a response, but he had responded in the fall and said, I would love to use this for the Invictus Games. And then, of course, not knowing what was going to happen with he and his missus and his duties here in the UK, it seemed to be going off the rails, but it did not. Within days of his recent news, they contacted us and said, oh no, it's on the schedule and he's coming back to the UK to be there with you at Abbey Road when you record it with the soldiers. So the soldiers are going to sing the song and I'll be singing the chorus. I'll produce the track, and we're doing it at the famous Abbey Road, which of course the Beatles made all their records at.
That is brilliant. And to announce this, the involvement is Harry shared a couple of fake text messages between himself and yourself. I thought they were real to begin with before I read the disclaimer. Did he capture your text presence well, or do you use more emojis, Jon?
No, actually, I think it was pretty cheesy, but I didn't do it. But my Lord, the world, the press has picked up on this. And again, my intent was just to record it, and when it came out, people would hear it. But the Invictus folks have made a real big deal of this, and I'm very proud. I'm very proud to be doing this for them and giving all the money to them. 100% of the proceeds will go to the Invictus Games. As in America, I gave 100% of the song to the Warriors to get dogs, service dogs, for the soldiers fighting this PTSD. So it's so wonderful that just what came from my heart in a song, I'm able to do something with and give all the money away.
That's absolutely brilliant, Jon. And Harry is so committed to that Invictus. He's been out into Australia with the Invictus Games. Do you, looking at your life from afar, you seem to have a really good balance of, you know, when you work and then when you go off and do other things, and then lots of philanthropic ventures, which we'll get to soon. But can you understand, looking at Harry and Meghan, why they might want to take a step back from their crazy life in the UK?
Yeah, I think I can. Of course, I can't say, you know, specifically because I don't live in his shoes or the shoes of his brother or even their father or grandmother. Their duties to crown into the country, and I feel for him. But I do understand that glaring spotlight could be difficult, and I admire them for being brave enough to stand up and take this time for themselves. So, you know, I wish them Godspeed, really. You know, I hope that they find some peace.
I want to circle back to the song we've mentioned already a few times. It's such a powerful song, Lower the Flag, about the gun violence. And you mentioned that you do, how specific you are. You name all those, the 10 biggest massacres that have occurred. And I feel like that with the songs Lower the Flag and Unbroken, Blood in the Water, it's the specific, those specific touches that do make these songs more powerful. There's no hiding behind metaphors. You are actually being very clear with what you're saying on these songs.
Oh, yeah. It was important to me to get it right. If you're going to be that bold and make these kind of statements, you better be sure to get them right, because they're going to be criticized and scrutinized. And, you know, there's going to be a part of the fan base that expects us to continue to rewrite bad medicine. And, you know, that's just not who I am or what I want to say at this time in my career. So if you're going to be this brazen, you better make sure you get it right. I remember 30 years ago when I stepped out and did the Young Guns record, there was a lot of what I was going through, but I was able to hide behind the character of Billy the Kid. And it was cathartic for me, but it was safe. 30 years on, I don't need to play anything safe. I just want to say something, and I'm proud of what I've said, and so that's why we release it.
And it's such a powerful song, and it made me think of particularly the Vegas shooting. And as somebody who stands on stage and plays to, you know, millions of people around the world, that one must have really struck a chord.
I know that hotel. I know that field where they were performing. I've been on that field. I've run by it as a, you know, just as a jogger many times. You know, it was unbelievable to me that incident occurred. Unfortunately, it's too easy for things like that to happen, and folks were just there to try to forget their problems for an evening, you know, to celebrate life and enjoy each other's company and share the commonality of music. And then this affected so many people from all walks of life. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody at any time, at any place in this world. But bad things happen, you know, to good people. And it's difficult. But, you know, like I said, I wanted to make sure that I was truthful when I was brave enough to write a song like that.
Jon, every time you've visited Australia over the 35 odd years, I've been to a concert every time you've come, and I And I've always admired and been quite amazed at how engaged and passionate you are always, not just in the concerts, but when I see you interviewed, and obviously the passion that you have for the albums when they come out. Has there ever been a time when your passion or engagement has waned and I missed it?
Well, you know, there were some difficult times early in your career when you're just a kid and you see every other band that's gone through this, the trials and tribulations of fame. That comes with youth. So that was a curious time when I was a young boy. But we went through some difficult times, you know, losing Richie, and that big hole to fill was hard for me. I was able to write "This House Is Not for Sale," and metaphorically speaking, using the symbolism of the house being the band, to go out there and get through that album and tour. And now, you know, it is what it is. But that wasn't easy as an artist, you know, because when you're a kid and you set out to conquer the world with your mates who believed in your vision, you know, things happen and life goes on. So that was a difficult time. But I don't think that my passion for songwriting ever waned. My passion for living out of a suitcase and eating room service has, in fact. But, you know, I'm able to pace it a little more these days and make sure I don't fall into that trap. Life on the road is glorious, and it's a spoiled, incredible opportunity to, you know, to see the planet. But it can, you know, it tires you out. It is what it is. So I just do it properly now.
It sounds like songwriting is cathartic. I mean, you mentioned that time with Richie leaving. You poured that energy or whatever you were feeling into, you know, the great album that was, you know, This House Is Not for Sale.
Yeah, you know, with every record, there aren't deadlines, so you just make sure you get it right. And you don't really know if you like an album until at least a year after it's released. It's the best that you can be in and of that moment, but it takes another year or more to be able to look back on it and be totally objective. Because in that first period, like now, I know every note and every, you know, mix and the mastering and the photos and the lyrics. You know, I'm too close to it. You need to be away from it for a while. But when you look back on a record, you want to be as proud of it as you can, because it's the closest. What I've always said about songwriting is it's the closest thing to immortality that anyone will ever feel. A song will be here long after I'm gone. You know, Living on a Prayer will outlive me and my kids. And that's an incredible statement to make. But at this point, it's true. And you aspire to that every time. To be able to get close to that would be a miracle.
When you've achieved so much, how does Jon Bon Jovi, how do you judge success? What is success, like this album, how do you judge it?
Yeah, just by how I feel inside. If I feel fulfilled at the end of this, you know, after interview 1,000 and show 100. It'll be, you know, that's how I want to be fulfilled. It's not monetary, and it has nothing to do with the amount of people that come and see the shows. It's really just how do I feel as a man and artistically speaking as a man. The rest of it is just gravy at this point. I never was one of those applause junkies, and I've met many of them in my career that love the spotlight, you know. That was never my inspiration, never my inspiration. Mine was to go out there and be the best me I could be.
And have you thought about, and I'm certainly not trying to push you into retirement, Jon, but have you thought, like, how long do you want to do this? So, like, you know, will you be recording an album, you know, on your deathbed?
Well, it's an interesting question that I'd been asked in the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years now. They say, well, when does retirement come? My inspiration, like I said, is not numbers, and it's not to hear the applause. it's if I have something to say, then I'll say it, and then I'd like to share it. And then if I want to share it, then I'd like to perform it to somebody. But it just doesn't have to be 240 show tours. So if I have something to say, then I'll put a record out. And then age really to me is nothing more than a number. As long as we're making good quality work, then I'd like to share it with people. But I'm never going to do the 150 show tour again. I mean, those days are behind me. I have no desire to. Right now, I truly have 20 shows on that I'm going to perform. And maybe we'll add another 10, and that'll be it for the year. So it's really just about, I want to play the record.
So there are people now watching this, Jon, screaming at the TV saying, or asking the question, does that mean we won't see you in Australia in 2020? Would there be a chance in 2021?
There was certainly a chance. I mean, I was considering coming at the end of this year. And so it's on the list. It's high on the list. I love Australia. I love the people of Australia. I love the spirit of Australia. And actually, as we're speaking, and my heart broke when I saw the fires and all the devastation that hit the nation. And, my thoughts go out to everybody. So, no, I want to come back and embrace as much of that spirit again as soon as possible.
Talking to you for a little while now, I get the impression I might know the answer to this question, but it seems to be quite the trend of bands who have had the longevity. I was at the U2 concert recently where they performed Joshua Tree as an album show. You seem to be very excited and enthused about the new songs and the new album, rightfully so, but would you ever consider a Slippery When Wet album tour or a New Jersey album tour or a Keep the Faith album tour?
Yeah, but it doesn't excite me. It doesn't really excite me. It seems like a celebration of nostalgia. I mean, maybe for a night, but I wouldn't go out and tour that. That sounds like looking back instead of being in the moment. And I've performed most of those songs thousands of times. So, not that I mind doing them, but I don't know. That seems like no. That seems like
you were
no.
very polite and dancing around it, but I'm getting a very clear no, Jon.
I think it's a no.
You're like I said, you're very good at with it seems of life balance when you're touring, you're working hard, and you're writing, promoting albums, writing albums. You've also got your philanthropic ventures, which are quite staggering. The amount of good that you do. From soup kitchens to cafes at universities. How important is giving back to you?
Again, it was part of the evolution, Peter. And if my wife heard you say soup kitchen, she'd smack you upside the head because she gets mad about that. When we created the Soul Kitchens, the idea was that you would come to the restaurant and it was all about inclusion. There's no prices on the menu. And if you're in need, you'd never know that if you were there effecting change by leaving a donation or someone in need who's sitting right next to you and it was volunteering for their meal. And it's a communal table, 3-course meal, all silverware and fine dining ware. And so it's not institutional. There's no soda pop and French fries. It's all farm-to-table foods. So when we created this model, it was foreign in our community, what we were trying to do. And now it's, of course, has caught on. And so we opened the second one because we realized that after feeding someone, there was so many services that could be provided to help those who were the hardworking folks who sometimes have a hard time making paychecks stretch. But they were, whether it was in seeking legal or medical or job advice, we stretched in the second one to that, and the restaurant was bigger. Then we realized that kids at universities were hungry at night, and that blew a lot of people's minds in America. So we opened one at Rutgers University in New Jersey, and that's being embraced there. And since we opened the one at Rutgers, we've gotten calls from California to Alabama, right across our nation. Universities have called and said, we want to open a soul kitchen. And so I think that this is probably going to be as much a part of my family's legacy as music has been. And this will be my wife's crowning achievement, was thinking of this idea. So we're proud of what we've done. And when something just comes from a pure place like it had, people respond to it. And, so we will continue to do it.
Please don't tell Dorothea I call it the soup kitchen. I don't want to mess with somebody who decides the first single off Bon Jovi albums. I don't. And also, quickly, I want to ask you about Hampton Water. Rosé is going off at the moment. Everyone's drinking rosé. Where can I get a bottle in Australia?
Yeah, you can. I know it's it's a little distributor right now in Australia, but I can't tell you the store that it's in because I can tell you the ones that it's not in yet. But it's absolutely it is there in small quantities, and I'm so excited because it's my son Jesse came up with the idea, and it's going into its 3rd year, and he's done incredibly well with it. It's a well celebrated award-winning rosé, and it's really doing great. The kid's really done a great job with it.
Jon, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you tonight. You say it takes a year to find out if an album's any good. I can guarantee that in 2021 you're going to still love Bon Jovi 2020. It's a cracking album. You're in absolutely top form, and hopefully we see you in Australia later in the year.
I hope so too. Thank you for your time, Peter. I really am sending my love out to everybody there that was affected by the fires and now the mudslides. But know that my heart is with you, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thanks, Jon. And I hope I got the publicity tour off to a good start.
Thanks, buddy.